The morning light filtered through the blinds of my cramped studio apartment, casting thin stripes of gold across the faded carpet. My phone buzzed on the nightstand for the third time in 10 minutes. I didn't need to look at the screen to know who it was. Alexander Vance. The name alone used to make my heart race. Now it just made me tired. I reached for my phone, my fingers stiff from the restless night I'd had. 3 nights in a row I'd stayed up, overseeing every detail of Clarissa's 28th birthday banquet. The white lychee flowers had to be arranged just so. The roses needed to match the exact shade of pink she favored. I'd personally confirmed the delivery of the final batch at 3 a.m. before handing my duties off to the day shift at the 5-star hotel where I worked as lobby manager. I'd barely slept 3 hours. "Come here." 3 words. That's all he said when I answered. No hello, no explanation, no concern for the exhaustion thick in my voice. Just that commanding tone I'd been obeying for the past decade of my life. The traffic outside my $3,000 a month apartment hummed its usual morning song. I stared at the ceiling, feeling the weight of 10 years pressing down on my chest like concrete. And suddenly I couldn't breathe. But habit is a cruel mistress. Before I'd even made a conscious decision, I was pulling on my uniform, hailing a cab, heading toward the hotel where I'd spent the last 3 years building a career I was proud of. Building something that was mine. The top-floor banquet hall door stood slightly ajar. I heard her voice before I saw her. "Who decorated this party?" Clarissa's usually sweet soprano had gone shrill with disbelief. "I specifically requested Jean-Luc from Paris. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is?" I stopped breathing altogether, pressing myself against the wall outside. Alexander's response came after a pause, maddeningly casual. "Weren't you the one chasing after that half-blood designer last month? Honestly, I think even Nora does a better job than him. His skills are mediocre at best." Nora. My name spoken like a weapon. I closed my eyes and suddenly I was 17 again, watching Alexander smile at me with that devilish gleam in his eyes while wearing Romeo's costume. "Nora, don't you think you're more suited to be my leading lady than Clarissa?" He'd said it like a compliment. Like he was bestowing some precious gift upon me. 5 minutes later, Clarissa and her friends had me pinned to the floor of the rehearsal room, tearing that costume off my body while I clutched at my nearly bare chest, too shocked to even cry. The memory should have hurt. Instead, I just felt hollow. The banquet hall fell silent. 3 seconds passed. Then the sharp crash of breaking glass pierced the air. A coworker rushed past me, alarmed. I caught her arm. "I'll handle it. If Alexander wanted to put on his little show, fine. I'd play my part. But it would be the last time." I straightened my posture, fixed my professional smile in place and pushed open the door. Every guest turned to look at me. Rich second-generation elites, the same crowd from high school, the ones who'd watched Clarissa destroy me piece by piece over the years and laughed along. Clarissa sat at the center of the room, her eyes red-rimmed but dry, her delicate features twisted with disgust. At her feet lay the shattered remains of a custom crystal goblet, part of the summer night-themed set Alexander had ordered a year in advance just for her. When she saw me, contempt flickered across her almond-shaped eyes. She lifted her chin and laughed, that sweet, cruel sound I knew so well. "Nora, who gave you permission to touch my birthday party?" She tilted her head with mock innocence. "Do you really think you're qualified?" I knew the drill. I'd learned it 10 years ago in a high school bathroom, pressed against cold tiles while she sneered about my father in prison and my mother working as a maid. "Alexander just keeps you around like a little pet from the slums. Don't fool yourself." I bowed my head. "I apologize, Miss Whitmore. I heard there was a commission bonus for this project." "My family situation," I forced a smile. "I begged Mr. Vance to let me take it. Please don't blame him. It was the right move. The safe move." Clarissa's expression softened almost imperceptibly, the way a cat's does when it's tired of playing with its mouse. But she wasn't done. "Pick any man in this room," she said sweetly. "Kneel in front of him and say, 'Nora is just a desperate little thing who doesn't know her place.' Then I'll forgive you." My breath caught. My face went cold, then hot. Instinctively, I looked toward Alexander. He was watching me with an amused expression, like this was all just entertainment for him. One eyebrow lifted slightly, his voice cool and cutting. "Any man here other than me." Those words hit me like a physical blow. I could feel every pair of eyes in the room, waiting to see what the pathetic hotel manager would do. The sleazy businessman who'd harassed me before actually whistled. "Come on, sweetheart," he called out. "Say it's sexy and I'll book the most expensive suite tonight. Promise you a good time." I knew his reputation. Girls who ended up with him wound up in hospitals. Alexander heard it all. And he said nothing. Just watched, calm and composed, as if my dignity meant nothing. When he finally spoke, it was to the sleazy man, not to defend me, but to clarify something else entirely. "Whatever you do with Nora in private is none of my business. But don't talk like that in front of Clarissa. You'll corrupt my wife." The sleazy man backed down immediately, apologizing profusely. But the way he looked at me afterward held no restraint, only anticipation. Clarissa, meanwhile, glowed with happiness at Alexander's so-called declaration of loyalty. She pouted playfully. "Who's your wife?" He pulled her into his arms, kissing and coaxing until she giggled. Only then did he glance at me, as if remembering I still stood there waiting to be humiliated. "Hurry up," he commanded. "Say it and leave. Don't ruin my wife's birthday." Something inside me cracked open. But instead of pain, I felt nothing at all. Just a vast empty silence where my heart used to be. I looked at the man I had loved for 10 years. The moon I had worshipped from afar, believing its cold light was meant just for me. The moon, I realized, was just a dead rock. Always had been. "No." The word came out calm, steady, surprising even me. Alexander's eyes narrowed. "No," I repeated. "I'm a person, Alexander. Not some toy for you rich kids to play with." For a moment, surprise flickered across his features. Then his expression hardened into contempt. He thought I was mimicking Clarissa, throwing a tantrum for attention. "Nora. Know your place. Don't be stupid." I reached up, unfastened my name badge from my chest, and walked to the trash can by the door. I dropped it in. "I quit." The words tasted like freedom. Alexander's temple pulsed with irritation. "Don't be ridiculous." I smiled, and it felt strange on my face, like a muscle I hadn't used in years. "Mr. Vance, from now on, please keep your twisted love games with Miss Whitmore away from me." I could feel the shock in the room, the sudden shift of energy. Everyone's face changed except Alexander's. He looked completely unbothered, almost bored. "Nora, you're not getting any younger. Stop chasing after me." I didn't turn back. I just said fine and walked out. The resignation paperwork took an hour. Afterward, I went home and collapsed onto my bed, staring at the ceiling where a water stain had slowly spread over the past year. My phone buzzed. A news alert. Vance Group heir proposes to Whitmore heiress, wedding on the horizon. I opened the article. There was Alexander, down on one knee at the banquet hall I'd just left, holding up a diamond ring. Clarissa's face was radiant. I closed the app and thought about college. How Alexander's university was close to mine, how Clarissa was studying abroad, how their long-distance relationship was a constant storm of breakups and makeups. Sophomore year, after catching Clarissa with a foreign exchange student, Alexander got drunk and showed up at the small restaurant where I was working in the back kitchen. He stood there in his tailored suit, holding a pair of earrings originally meant for Clarissa, looking at my bare-faced, messy-haired self. "Nora, you actually look pretty decent. Want to be with me?" I'd looked into those dark eyes and felt my heart stop. I nodded. For a few months he was mine. Sort of. He only acted like my boyfriend inside my apartment. We'd cook together, watch movies, kiss. He never stayed the night. One time things almost went further. But at the last second, fear surged up inside me, all the buried shame and anxiety about my body, my worth, my place in his world. I pushed him away. His face darkened. Then he laughed, that mocking sound I'd hear in my nightmares for years. "Desperate to climb the social ladder, and now you want to play the virtuous virgin." He slammed the door on his way out. Not long after, Clarissa came back from overseas. And I went back to being his shadow, pretending those months had never happened. My phone rang, yanking me from the memory. My father's name flashed on screen. The father I hadn't seen in 3 years, the one currently serving time. I answered on instinct. He started yelling immediately. "Useless girl. Who gave you permission to upset Mr. Vance? He's my only connection to the outside world. You go back and apologize right now, or so help me." I hung up. Blocked the number. Then I blocked Alexander's too. A text came through from an unknown number. "Mr. Vance says if you come back and apologize, he'll overlook today's mistakes." I blocked that too. My college best friend had been telling me for years to leave, to come to Harbor City where she ran a talent agency, where an international hotel was hiring, where I could start over. My lease was ending next week. I called my landlord. Told her I was moving out. Then I pulled out every item Alexander had ever left at my place over the years, took photos and listed them online. By midnight most of it was sold. By morning I had a one-way ticket to Harbor City. The VIP lounge of an upscale bar hummed with celebratory energy. Congratulations, Alex. To the engagement. Glasses clinked around Alexander Vance, but he barely responded, just raised his own in a vague toast before setting it down untouched. His friends exchanged glances. Everyone could see his mind was elsewhere. Man's already lovesick, someone teased. Clarissa's only been gone a few hours and is missing her already. First loves, man. High school sweethearts. It's romantic as hell. The laughter picked up, warming the room. Alexander's expression finally softened slightly, almost a smile. One of his oldest friends leaned in curiously. Hey Alex, that girl who used to follow you around, Nora something. She seeing anyone now? Alexander's glass paused halfway to his lips. He set it down, giving his friend a cool look. You interested? The friend waved his hands quickly. No. It's my buddy from out of town. He went on this camping trip and Nora was there with some group. They took photos together. My buddy thought she was gorgeous. He rubbed the back of his neck sheepishly. Asked me to get her contact info. I heard she quit her job at the hotel, and my buddy's family owns a chain of mid-range hotels. Thought he could, offer her something. Alexander didn't respond immediately. When he did, his voice had gone cold. Your buddy's not exactly discriminating, is he? The friend laughed awkwardly, raising his glass to cover. Honestly though, Nora's got a great figure. Really fair skin. Easy on the eyes. My buddy's all about looks, doesn't care about background or whatever. Alexander's eyebrow arched, irritation flickering through his eyes. He tossed back his drink in one long swallow. Whatever. If he wants to chase her, let him. She's nothing to me. Just some hotel employee. Why would I care? Another friend jumped in quickly to change the subject. Come on man, leave Alex alone with that stuff. A woman scrolling through her phone suddenly gasped. Wait, Nora really moved out of her apartment? She's leaving the city. Alexander didn't even look up. She's throwing a tantrum. She'll be back. She's gotten stupider with age, pulling these childish stunts for attention. His voice dripped with dismissal. No one cares about a girl like that. Even her own parents don't want her. The words hung heavy in the room. Everyone forced uncomfortable smiles, joining in the mockery because that's what you did around Alexander Vance. The woman with the phone laughed along at first. Then her expression changed. No, seriously. Look. She held up her phone. She's really selling everything. She posted photos online. Alexander glanced at the screen. His expression froze. Those were the earrings he'd given her years ago, the ones meant for Clarissa. Day 3 in Harbor City and I passed my job interview. My best friend Maya squealed so loud the restaurant patrons turned to stare. She dragged me shopping for new work clothes, then treated me to the best Japanese food I'd ever eaten. I posted a photo of my salmon donburi on social media, captioning it simply, "New city, new start." Within an hour I had 2 comments. The first was from an account I recognized, one Alexander and I had once shared during those brief months. You really left? Not coming back. I typed one word. No. The second comment came from a name I hadn't seen in years. A high school classmate back when I was on scholarship at that elite international school, hiding my father's prison sentence and my mother's maid uniform like shameful secrets. Nora? You're in Harbor City too. His profile picture showed a sleek Doberman. It took me a minute to place him. Ethan Wright. My desk mate freshman year. Another scholarship kid, just as invisible as me. He transferred out sophomore year, said he was going back to his hometown. I smiled and typed back. Ethan. Yes, just moved here. Let's get lunch sometime. He responded immediately. I'd like that. 2 weeks in Harbor City and life was good. My apartment was small but clean, with actual sunlight and a landlady who brought me homemade dumplings. Then one day that same landlady showed up at my door with a gleam in her eye. Little Nora, you have boyfriend. Her Mandarin carried a thick Hong Kong accent. Auntie knows someone perfect for you. I started to politely decline. She held up 5 fingers. 500 off your rent. I grabbed her hand. Auntie, you have excellent taste. I'm completely single. The guy apparently was her ex-husband's nephew. Same age as me. Never been married. Good job. Good family. The restaurant she chose was stunning, built over the water with a glass bridge connecting it to the shore. I arrived 30 minutes early, nerves jangling, only to find he was already there. Young. Handsome. Neatly dressed. He stood when I approached and I blinked in surprise. Dating in Harbor City was this competitive? Then the world tilted. Someone screamed. Ships lost control. It's going to hit us. Panic erupted. The decorative glass beneath our feet cracked, spider-webbed, then shattered. I fell. Cold water closed over my head. I couldn't swim. Never learned. Salt burned my nose, my throat, my lungs. Darkness pressed in. Vaguely, I heard someone dive in after me. Felt strong arms wrap around my waist, pulling me upward. Felt lips against mine, breathing life back into me. When we broke the surface, I was gasping, coughing, clinging to my rescuer like he was the only solid thing in a crumbling world. It was my blind date. There was no way to climb out near the restaurant. We had to hold onto the seawall, waiting for rescue. I was shaking in shock, still not fully processing what had happened. I stared at the shattered remains of the restaurant and blurted, "Do you think their boss has insurance?" A laugh rumbled against my ear, deep and warm. "I certainly hope so, or they're in serious trouble." I started laughing too, half hysterical. I turned to look at him, and we were so close our faces nearly touched. I panicked, let go, and immediately started slipping back into the water. He caught me, pulled me close again. This time, because of the angle, we ended up chest to chest, legs tangled together. It was summer. I'd worn a thin dress. He wore a lightweight suit, now completely soaked. Our bodies pressed together, warm and slick with seawater, every point of contact burning. Around us, only the sound of waves and our own pounding hearts. I couldn't breathe, and not from nearly drowning. A lifeguard spotted us soon after. When we were safely on shore, wrapped in towels, I stuck out my hand. "Hi. I'm Nora. I work at Ocean View International Hotel." He pushed wet hair back from his forehead, revealing sharp features and amber eyes that caught the setting sun. Those eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled. "Hi, Nora. I'm Ethan." Later, I learned the restaurant belonged to a friend of Ethan's who apparently had a terrible track record with rogue ships. "This is the second time this year," Ethan said, shaking his head as we walked along the waterfront days later. "He refuses to relocate. Says the view is worth it." Maya was sprawled on my couch when I got home, face mask on, scrolling through her phone. She shrieked suddenly. "Nora! Someone filmed you too." It was a bystander video. In the corner of the frame you could see Ethan holding me in the water. The lighting, the angle, the filter all combined to make us look like something out of a romance drama, 2 strangers locked in each other's arms, eyes locked like lovers. The video had gone viral. Maya cackled, scrolling through comments. "People are shipping you so hard. This is exactly how I imagine falling in love while falling into the sea." "Oh my God, Nora, you're a meme." I rolled my eyes, toweling my hair dry. Then she went quiet. "Hey." Her voice had changed. "Look at this." She held up her phone. A news headline, Vance Group heir spotted in heated argument with fiancée. Wedding plans in jeopardy. I looked at the photo. Alexander, looking tired and angry. Clarissa, tearful and dramatic. Same old story. I put my phone down. That's just how they love. Fighting and making up. The more they fight, the deeper they fall. Maya studied me for a long moment. "You really don't care anymore?" I thought about it. Really thought. "No," I said. "I really don't." The universe apparently has a sick sense of humor. The next morning I woke up burning with fever. 103 degrees. My body ached, my head throbbed, and every breath felt like work. But the hotel was packed with mainland tourists. Every room full. No sick days, not during peak season. I swallowed fever reducers like candy and pushed through. Checked in guests, solved problems, smiled until my face hurt. By the time the last guest was settled, it was nearly 2 a.m. I was about to collapse into the break room couch when the lobby doors opened. Alexander Vance walked in. For a moment I thought the fever was hallucinating. But no, there he was, looking thinner than I remembered, dark circles under his eyes, an unfamiliar hollowness in his expression. Professionalism kicked in. I checked him in, escorted him personally to the presidential suite, kept my voice pleasant and distant. I turned to leave. He grabbed my wrist. "Nora." His voice was rough, uncertain, nothing like the commanding tone I remembered. I didn't pull away. I couldn't. The fever had stolen my strength. "Who's that man in the video?" he asked quietly. "The one holding you in the water." I stared at him, and for the first time I felt nothing but pity. Pity and a strange, distant curiosity about what I'd ever seen in him. I pulled my wrist free. The motion made me dizzy, but I steadied myself against the door frame. "Mr. Vance, you're engaged to Miss Whitmore. Who I see is none of your concern." He stepped closer. "I haven't slept well since you left. You were with me for 10 years, Nora. I got used to you. Come back. Let's go back to how things were." I almost laughed. Almost. But I was too tired, too sick, too done. "Go back." I tilted my head, studying him. "Are you asking me to be the other woman, Mr. Vance? Or are you saying Miss Whitmore should be?" His eyes widened with genuine shock. "Clarissa could never be a mistress." I turned away. He grabbed me again, harder this time. His patience, always thin, had evaporated entirely. "Nora, don't be stupid. Who do you think you are? This hotel has Vance Group shares. One phone call and you're out of a job tomorrow." The sheer, shameless arrogance of it made something snap inside me. Rage burned through the fever fog, hot and cleansing. My legs gave way. And I fell into a warm, broad chest. Lemon and cedar. A familiar scent. Strong arms wrapped around me, holding me up. "Interesting," a calm voice said beside my ear. I didn't realize Alexander Vance's words carried so much weight in Harbor City. I looked up. Ethan. But not the Ethan I knew. This Ethan wore a dark embroidered suit, clearly custom-made, worth more than my annual salary. His hair was perfectly styled. Behind him stood a row of bodyguards, all well over 6 feet tall. In that moment he looked like someone entirely out of my league. Someone I could never hope to touch in this lifetime. I tried to pull away. His arms tightened and I was too weak to fight. Alexander laughed coldly. "So that's it. You've already slept with him. No wonder you don't want to come back." Then he looked at me and his voice turned almost kind, almost generous, like he was bestowing a gift. "I'll give you 6 months, Nora. I'll marry Clarissa, have a child with her. After 6 months you come back to me. On your own." Both Ethan and I stared at him, disgusted. Then Ethan's hand touched my cheek. His eyes widened. "You're burning up." Without another word he swept me into his arms. To his men he said simply, "Handle this." The last thing I saw before darkness took me was Alexander's shocked face. I woke in a hospital room, clean and quiet, and 4 drip in my arm. Morning light streamed through the window. The events of the night before came back in fragments. Ethan, looking like a different person. Bodyguards. Alexander's insane proposition. I reached for my phone, intending to delete Ethan's contact, to cut this off before it could go any further. I didn't need another rich man in my life. I'd learned that lesson. A message waited from him, sent an hour ago. Thermos on the bedside table. "Please eat something when you wake up." I turned my head. There it was, a pink thermos sitting quietly in the morning light. My finger hovered over the delete button for a long moment. I didn't press it. The porridge inside was thick and rich, filled with ingredients meant to restore energy and boost blood. Most importantly, it was still warm. He must have timed it perfectly, brought it fresh, left before I woke. I ate every spoonful. By noon my 4 was done. I left the hospital, heading for the subway. A voice message came through. "Nora. Your supervisor approved sick leave for today. I'd like to make up for that missed meal. Not just to fix that regret, but to explain. And to apologize." I opened my mouth to type a refusal. A sleek black Maybach pulled up beside me. The window lowered. Ethan looked at me with those amber eyes, soft and steady. Waiting. Coward that I was, I got in the car. We drove through Harbor City in silence, soft English music playing. I stared out the window, pretending to scroll through my phone, not seeing anything. Eventually, we stopped near a public park. Ethan pointed to a stone monument carved with a name. Samuel Wright. That was my father. He was one of the most respected police chiefs in Harbor City. His voice was quiet, steady. When I was 15, he was framed by criminals. Died in a corruption setup that was never his. I turned to look at him. My mother took me to Northbridge after that. Changed our names, faked our background, kept us hidden until the people who killed my father were brought to justice. He glanced at me. Meeting you in high school was the one lucky thing that happened during those years. I kept my head down, dumbed down my grades, dressed to blend in. But your eyes, he smiled faintly. You sparkled, Nora. Even when you were trying to disappear. You were the only light in my grey world back then. I didn't know what to say. My chest ached with something I couldn't name. We never actually got to have that lunch, he said. Our first date was interrupted by a ship. My phone rang. My landlady, hysterical. My apartment had flooded. A cat from upstairs had turned on the tap and the owner was out of town. Ethan drove me back. Most of my furniture was ruined. My landlady, apologetic and flustered, refunded my deposit and that month's rent, then arranged for me to move into another property she owned, closer to the hotel. Ethan helped me move. I let him. I was too exhausted to protest. That night, after everything was set up, I handed him a bamboo coaster and politely told him it was time to go. He went. 20 minutes later, a knock. I opened the door. Ethan stood there holding 2 large plastic bags full of daily essentials. His chest heaved from carrying them up the stairs. Red pressure marks striped his fingers. He didn't say anything. Just set the bags inside the doorway and stepped back. I noticed a lot of your things got ruined in the flood, he said quietly. You won't have time to shop tonight. These are from the market down the street. Good quality, locally trusted brands. I stared at him. I know you have doubts about me, Nora. About who I really am. But I need you to know, he met my eyes. This isn't a fleeting crush. I'm not playing games. I like you the way a man likes a woman he wants to spend his whole life with. I know that sounds unbelievable coming from someone you barely know. But you've been part of my life for 10 years, Nora. Even when you didn't know it. He left before I could respond. I stood in my doorway for a long time, staring at the bags full of toothpaste and shampoo and towels and things I hadn't even thought to replace yet. I avoided Ethan Wright for a full week. Ignored his texts. Declined his calls. Hid in the employee break room when I saw his car near the hotel. I knew it was cowardly. I knew it was unfair. But every time I thought about those amber eyes, that quiet confession, that offering of porridge and toothpaste and patience, I panicked. Rich men didn't fall in love with girls like me. They kept us as pets, as tools, as convenient distractions until the real thing came along. I'd learned that lesson in high school. Alexander had taught it to me over and over for 10 years. At the hotel, the lobby screens played morning news. Ethan Wright, revealed as one of Harbor City's most notable young entrepreneurs, cutting ribbons at new shopping centers, attending galas, looking like he'd stepped out of a magazine with his sharp features and cool composure. I forced myself to look away. In the executive office of Vance Group, Alexander stared at the same news footage. Has Nora agreed to see Ethan Wright yet? He asked his secretary. The secretary blinked at the non sequitur. Not that I'm aware of, sir. From what I've heard, she hasn't met with him at all this past week. Alexander's expression eased slightly, the storm clouds receding. Sir, Miss Whitmore's office called. She wants to confirm your attendance at her bridal fitting this afternoon. Alexander thought about Clarissa, about the way she'd been going out with her so-called guy friends again lately, about the text he'd seen on her phone last week from someone named Marcus. Tell her I have a meeting. She can try on dresses alone. 2 months in Harbor City. The guest services team went out for dinner, then karaoke. I stayed late, enjoying the camaraderie, the feeling of belonging somewhere. A new guy had joined our department. Young, polite, clean-cut. Something about him made my skin prickle, but I couldn't say why. When he got tipsy and started hovering close in the private KTV room, I stayed sharp, didn't touch any alcohol. Near the end of the night, drowsiness hit me like a wave. I hadn't drunk anything. But the fruit platter. The new guy was smiling. Smug. Other colleagues had drifted out one by one. It was just him and me now. He slung me over his shoulder, carried me toward the parking lot. I bit the inside of my cheek. Hard. Pain jolted through the fog. Through blurred vision, I saw a black Bentley parked nearby. I screamed with everything I had left. Ethan Wright. The car doors flew open. Two massive bodyguards rushed out. I'd seen them before, hovering at the edges of my life for weeks. Ethan had arranged protection before leaving the country, I realized. He'd been watching over me even while I ignored him. The new guy dropped me and ran. The bodyguards caught him. I climbed into the back seat of the Bentley, shaking, crying, still half-drugged. "I want to see Ethan Wright," I heard myself say. The bodyguards exchanged glances. One dialed a number. "Mr. Wright? Miss Chen says she wants to see you." When I regained full awareness, I was in a luxurious private estate hours away from Harbor City. My head still spun. I wandered hallways until I found a traditional study where Ethan sat conducting a video conference. The moment I saw him, everything I'd been holding in crashed over me. The humiliation of almost being drugged. The ache of not seeing him for weeks. The terror of realizing how close I'd come to something terrible. He looked up. I burst into tears. "Ethan Wright." I ran across the room and crashed into him, right in front of his entire video call audience. I didn't care. I was overwhelmed. I was safe. "I missed you so much," I sobbed into his chest. He didn't say a word. Just ended the call. Then he leaned down, lips brushing my ear, voice low and warm. "You little drunk. You brought this on yourself." The cream-colored silk sheets rustled beneath soft amber lighting. My fingers clenched and unclenched against the wrinkled bedding, keeping rhythm with his movements. Outside, rain began to fall. Inside, heat and tension built to an almost suffocating intensity. The roses blooming by the window seemed to curl their petals inward, embarrassed by what they witnessed. A night of endless passion. Of unspoken longing finally released. My last conscious memory was dawn breaking faintly outside. Ethan held me close, kissed my feverish forehead, then reached into the nightstand and pulled out a ring box. He slid a custom ring onto my finger. I mumbled, half asleep, teasing, "You're like a clearance sale item. Desperate to get sold." He laughed softly. "Well, my future wife is too good to stay single for long. I had to act fast." I smiled and drifted off, unaware that Ethan had photographed our hands together, matching diamond rings gleaming, and posted it to his social media with a simple caption. That same morning, in Alexander Vance's office, the sound of something shattering echoed through the executive floor. "Keep Alexander Vance busy until the wedding is over," Ethan told his assistant one morning as he dropped me at work. "He's not allowed in Harbor City." I was 3 months pregnant by then, glowing in ways I'd never imagined possible. The wedding planning had been whirlwind, a blur of white flowers and happy tears and Maya shrieking with joy. Ethan Wright, it turned out, was not just wealthy. He was one of the wealthiest men in the country, his family's true status revealed after his father's name was finally cleared. The criminals who'd framed him had been brought to justice years ago, but Ethan had stayed in Harbor City, building his own empire from the ground up. And he'd chosen me. Some nights I still woke up in a panic, certain it was all a dream. Then I'd feel his arm around my waist, his breath warm on my neck, and I'd drift back to sleep smiling. The wedding was small by his family's standards, intimate by anyone else's. Just close friends, Maya as my maid of honor, Ethan's now reconciled relatives. His mother cried when she met me, said I reminded her of herself when she was young. The dress was simple ivory silk. The flowers were white peonies. The ring on my finger felt like it had always belonged there. 6 months later, a major headline rocked the city. Ethan Wright confirms wife's pregnancy, a double blessing for Harbor City's golden couple. I was showing by then for months along, glowing and happy. The article featured a photo of us leaving a restaurant, my hand on my belly, Ethan's protective arm around my waist. And then, tucked at the bottom of the news cycle, a smaller headline. Whitmore heiress accused of historical bullying, classmate comes forward. I stared at the screen, stunned. Someone had come forward. One of Clarissa's victims from high school, a girl I'd never known, had filed a formal complaint with evidence. Photos. Videos. Witness statements. The Whitmore family's stocks plummeted. Their company faced investigation after investigation. Customer complaints about product defects surfaced. Whistleblowers emerged. And the Vance Group, once so eager to merge with the Whitmores, suddenly went quiet. No statements of support. No defense of their future daughter-in-law. Another headline followed. Vance Group real estate investments collapse, over $1 billion in penalties. I looked at Ethan across the breakfast table. He was scrolling through his phone, expression innocent. Busy morning, he said mildly. I raised an eyebrow. Is it? He smiled and changed the subject. Orange glazed crayfish for lunch? I know a place. Late autumn in Harbor City meant red maple leaves drifting down like snow, covering the streets in crimson and gold. My belly had grown heavy, 5 months along now, each day bringing me closer to meeting our child. Ethan made it his mission to take me out for delicious food whenever I craved something. That day it was orange-glazed crayfish at a tiny restaurant tucked away in the old quarter. On the way home he pulled over in a quiet spot and kissed me senseless. By the time we got out of the car near our building, my cheeks were flushed, my lips swollen, my hair slightly mussed. I laughed and swatted his arm. Behave yourself. Then I looked up. Alexander Vance stood on the sidewalk watching us. He looked terrible. Thinner than before, aged beyond his years. His suit hung loose on his frame, and his eyes held a hollow, desperate quality I'd never seen in him. Ethan's warm expression vanished. He pulled me close, voice ice cold. Mr. Vance. What business do you have with my wife? Alexander didn't even look at him. His eyes stayed fixed on me. I've thought about it 1,000 times, he said quietly. If I hadn't let Clarissa hurt you back then, would things have been different between us? I didn't answer. His voice trembled. I think I always liked you, Nora. Every time Clarissa and I fought, you were the first person I wanted to see. I was wrong. I should never have treated you the way I did. He lifted his head, hope flickering in his eyes. Can you give me another chance? I shook my head gently. I'm happy now, Alexander. I have a husband I love and a child on the way. Whatever was between us, if it ever really existed, it's gone. It was never real to begin with. I looked him straight in the eye. Maybe you still don't understand, but you were the reason I got bullied in school. The arrogance, the casual cruelty, the classism in your blood, it made everything inevitable. People like you and people like me? We were never meant to be. The words hit him like a physical blow. He staggered slightly as if something had knocked the breath from his lungs. Ethan, beside me, looked like he might actually start purring with satisfaction. I took his arm. Let's go home. We walked away, leaving Alexander Vance standing alone on the Harbor City sidewalk, surrounded by falling red leaves. I never saw Alexander again. Not when my firstborn, a girl with her father's amber eyes and my stubborn chin, took her first steps. Not when she spoke her first word, Dada, to Ethan's eternal delight. Not when we celebrated her second birthday, her third, her fourth. By then I was pregnant again. A boy this time, due in late summer. Our daughter, Lily, loved to pat my belly and whisper secrets to her baby brother. She'd learned the concept of growing in Mama's tummy from a picture book and took her role as big sister very seriously. Ethan had mellowed into fatherhood beautifully. The sharp-edged young entrepreneur had softened into a man who left meetings early for tea parties, who built blanket forts on weekends, who sang lullabies in a voice that couldn't carry a tune but made our daughter giggle anyway. We traveled back to Northbridge that spring, visiting my mother. She'd retired from housekeeping, finally able to rest thanks to the quiet support Ethan had arranged without ever telling me. She doted on Lily, spoiled her rotten, cried happy tears when I told her about the new baby. On our last day in the city, we went to the airport. Lily was fascinated by the planes, pressing her nose to the window, asking endless questions about where they went and who was inside them. I stood back, watching her, one hand resting on my pregnant belly. And I saw him. Alexander Vance, alone near a departure gate. No entourage. No Clarissa. No ring on his finger. He looked older now. The boyish arrogance had been replaced by something heavier, a weariness that seemed to live in his bones. But his eyes still held that familiar quality, restless, searching. They found me. For a moment he just stared. Then his gaze dropped to my belly, round and full with my second child. Something flickered across his face there and gone too fast to name. I smiled at him. A small, polite smile. The kind you give a stranger you'll never see again. He smiled back. Only he knew how much bitterness lived behind that smile. Only he knew the weight of 10 years of memories, of chances thrown away, of a girl he'd never really seen until she was gone. Lily came running over, grabbing my hand. Mama, Mama. The big plane is taking off. Can we go on it? Can we? I lifted her with some difficulty, my pregnant belly making the motion awkward. Ethan appeared at my side, taking her from my arms, settling her on his hip. Time to go, little bird, he said. Our plane's boarding. Lily waved enthusiastically at the window. Bye-bye, Northbridge. See you next time. I took one last look at Alexander. He was still standing there watching us. A lone figure in a crowded airport, surrounded by people rushing past, seeing none of them. I turned away. On the plane, Lily fell asleep against Ethan's shoulder, exhausted from her adventures. I leaned my head against the window, watching Northbridge shrink beneath us, a city of memories growing smaller and smaller until it vanished into clouds. Ethan's hand found mine. You okay? I thought about it. About high school hallways and stolen glances. About a boy in a Romeo costume who'd made my heart race and then broken it, over and over, without ever noticing. About 10 years of loving someone who'd never really seen me. About a man in an airport standing alone, still searching for something he'd thrown away. I'm perfect, I said. And I meant it. Ethan squeezed my hand. Good. Because Lily's been asking about names for the baby. She suggested Sparkles. I laughed. Sparkles, right. She's very insistent. Says it's because he'll be shiny like Mama. I looked at my daughter, sleeping peacefully against her father's chest, her small hand clutching a worn stuffed rabbit. I looked at my husband, watching me with those amber eyes I'd fallen in love with, first as a girl too young to understand, then as a woman brave enough to trust. I looked at my belly, round with new life, with new hope, with a future I'd never dared to imagine. Sparkles, I said, testing the word. We can add it to the list. Ethan grinned. Right after Optimus Prime and Dinosaur. Those were never on the list. They should have been. Outside the window, clouds gave way to sunlight. Harbor City waited ahead, home and heart and everything I'd never known I could have. I thought about Alexander one last time. About the girl I'd been, the one who'd believed his cold light was worth chasing. About the woman I'd become, the one who'd finally looked up and seen the moon for what it was. A dead rock. Cold and empty. And then I let him go. The clouds parted. Sunlight flooded the cabin. Lily stirred, mumbling in her sleep. Ethan's thumb traced circles on my palm. I closed my eyes and smiled. 6 months later, our son was born. We did not name him Sparkles. Lily was briefly disappointed, then decided he looked more like a pumpkin anyway, which became his permanent nickname. Ethan Wright retired from public life to spend more time with his family. Occasionally, photos surface of a handsome man with amber eyes, a laughing woman with a baby on her hip, and a little girl with the biggest smile you've ever seen. Alexander Vance never married. The Vance group recovered slowly, but its heir apparent seemed to have lost interest in everything. He travels frequently alone. No one knows what he's looking for. If you ask Nora Wright, she'll tell you she doesn't think about him at all. And she means it.